Hi, welcome to this medley of a video. Today we'll be discussing some reluctantly accepted Halloween traditions in Poland, as well doing the traditional October book wrap-up.
Intro.
So, first of all, I've traveled a little bit and taken part in some events, so I have so many drinks and snacks to share with you, but I have settled on 4 videos a month, so I have a backlog of them. I have this new thing with Squirtle, and this had to take precedence even though I bought it like a week ago only and I have other things to drink, because this soda, which I bought because the can was cute, is sea salt and cheese flavored. It's a sea salt cheese flavored soda. I think the top here is broken because it doesn't have the normal can looking stuff. So I'll be starting with drinking this. I have a tea as a backup because of course it is going to be disgusting, most likely. So let's start with talking a little bit about Halloween. So first and foremost, Halloween is, actually it worked, or didn't it? Oh, okay. So, that's a smart can design. Smells wrong. Halloween is on the 31st of October. Poland is a Catholic country, and the 1st of November is one of the more emotionally significant celebrations of the year, which is All Saints' Day. All Saints' Day is kind of like the equivalent of Dia de los Muertos, and because it is the day when we celebrate the dead, specifically and technically only those who ascended to heaven. However, we do not know as Catholics who already went to heaven, except for all the saints which have been officially sainted. So we take this time to celebrate the dead, and this is a very somber occasion. Polish people don't really have happy celebrations around death, not around funerals, and neither during this day. What we do during that day is we go to visit the graves of our dead. We put up znicze, which are like lanterns, specific type of glass lanterns on their graves. We also leave flowers there. Chrysanthemums are specifically very much funeral and grave flowers, so don't give Polish people chrysanthemums. It's not a huge faux pas, but it feels weird. It's like, for example, getting I wanted to say the Christmas star plant in a different point during the year. So it's just coded, heavily coded to be a funeral flower. What does it have to do with Halloween? Well, it is very close, and Halloween has no cultural significance for Polish people. It was 100% imported from the US, as is, with its all party connotation. So for us, it is a party celebration. It's a party day. Kind of like the way of celebrating Valentine's Day also has been imported from the US. Valentine's Day has not been traditionally celebrated as a day for kitschy romance. I am stalling, I still have not taken a sip. So, what does Halloween look like in Poland? Because we do celebrate it a little. First and foremost, it is a day for parties and costumes, as I mentioned. There is an occasion where we dress up, and it is the carnival at the beginning of the year, but we do love parties and dressing up, so we take this time to dress up and go to parties. The parties take place in clubs, or they are private parties. There are also parties for kids. The trouble is though with trick-or-treating, which has not been successfully adapted, because first of all staunch Catholics, or most of them, refuse to participate in Halloween and see it as ungodly. Therefore, you can safely assume that they will not open their house to kids asking for free candy. So they might get verbally aggressive. When my sister was trick-or-treating, some couple threatened to call the police and also demanded for the kids to give them their parents' information, which the kids shouldn't have done, but they were not instructed not to do that. So it was a whole mess. Fortunately, my sister just ran away. So yeah, she was not caught in the crossfire. So what is typically done is that the kids just visit specifically friendly neighbors, but because there is no custom of having candy over for kids to get, this is not a thing that people really want to participate in, to be honest. Even if they're fine with kids dressing up and stuff, they don't want to suck up on candy and distribute it. Some of them are fine with it, especially in like bigger gated communities or stuff like that. But the best solution to this, which is applied in my family, is to go around their neighbors, give the sweets that they are supposed to give back to the kids the next day. So prepare the neighbors by treating them to the treats that they are going to give to the kids. That's the best option, in my opinion. And after the Halloween with its sort of trick-or-treating, this next day, Day of All Saints, we go to visit my grandpa's grave because he's the only late relative that we have buried in Warsaw. And in Warsaw specifically, there are candies that you buy by the cemetery. One is called Lord's Skin. It is called that, I mean, it is my theory, because the traditional flavor is white, lately white and pink. It's a kind of cream flavored, and it is white like Lord's, so gentry's skin, which avoided the sun. That's my hypothesis for the origin of the name. But this year there were no traditional ones left. We only had nasty banana and apple, which is green, as you can see. I'm not going to eat it because it's very, very hard. It takes solid 10 minutes for it to soften enough to be able to chew it. But that's part of the experience. It's like a temporary jawbreaker. Love it, get it, if you can. And that's it. You just spend time with your family. There are no specific dishes. There are other candies that you can get at the cemetery, but it is, I think, regional to Warsaw because you can get candied, different types of candied nuts, obwarzanki on like a necklace, or pine cones. It's called pine cone, but it's just inflated rice which sticks together with toffee. That's the last type of candy that I can think about. Okay, that's it for the celebration. I just thought that I mentioned them because it's interesting, especially with the whole Catholic dialogue and, you know, thing going on. Okay, cheers. Okay, so this is actually not bad. And I might drink the whole thing, and it is upsetting in a way that I enjoy. It is flavored like cheese, and savory cheese at that, but there are savory cheeses which do not have the tangy, moldy flavors of Roquefort or Brie, but are more so caramelized and sweet to the taste. That's the kind of thing it tastes like. Also, it is a sparkling water, so the flavor is very faint. The salt is more symbolic. I can't really tell how much of it is there. So here you go. Let me get into the book review. So the first book that I finished, I started the previous month, and it was P.S. It's Always Been You by Lauren Blakely. So my favorite okay-ish writer of romances. This book was quite unmemorable, to be honest. It was about people reuniting after 10 years, and it made me think of this trope in romance when, of course, it is a fantasy, so you want the male love interest to be as amazing, as handsome, rich, eloquent, kind, amazing as you can make him, but there is a tendency to put down the women, not like stomp on them or anything, but for some reason it seems to be that the common part of the fantasy is that the woman is not well off. Even if she's of course beautiful and smart, she is down on her luck. Or if they are, for example, professional rivals and he's just pretty well off and not a billionaire, and she's on a similar level in their playing field, say they are both in marketing, he always gets the project that she really wants, and she is his subordinate on this project. Or she in general is somewhat below him, and I don't really get that. I have to do more, dig a little deeper into this whole trope. In this book specifically, she is a writer whose book is not really selling well, and he is a traveler and a best-selling novelist, of course, and he's also rich and handsome. It 2 out of 5 because it was just a little bit too mediocre, and I don't feel that there was anything specific that I could go back to and like really much. With that, I will go to another book that I read. I only just finished it. It was Lady Sophia's Lover by Lisa Kleypas. In Polish, the title is Without Scruples. I don't know why. Maybe because Lady Sophia's Lover, Kochanek Lady Sophie, just sounds kind of not amazing. This is a series of books. I've already read the first one a while back. Bow Street series, and they are all working as detectives, higher up detectives on Bow Street in like 19th century, I think. And I only read this series of books because I like the guys, and I don't even know if I would date any of them. I think I would in that time period, but they are so cool that I just go back to them. So even if I feel that the criminal plot is not really enough, it should be at least 30 to 40% of the book, and it's like 20 maybe. Even though I feel that the women are very bland, I feel that the guys whose perspective we sometimes see and who get a lot of screen time are great, so I'll stick with them. The end of this video will be a tiny bit of a book haul, and I already have the 3rd installment ready to read. I'll talk about it. So this is a classical romance because the focus is the relationship, not very much like in the modern romances, the woman's journey, I don't know, to professional development or personal growth is kind of the focus, at least half of it. Here is just the romance with a little bit of a crime plot added in, and with that I'd say it's a solid 3 out of 5 because I keep coming back to them. I thought I would be done because the guy from this book was my favorite, but the ending kind of made me interested in the 3rd guy as well. So 3 out of 5 stars. There were 2 books that I did not finish. There were 2 books that I did not finish. The Girlfriend Stage by Megan Walker and Jenna Patterson. I read like a third of it. I did not enjoy it because it was too different from its predecessor, which was The Extra. The Extra was honestly really conceptually interesting, with the focus on drama and kind of paying homage to telenovelas. But this one was more of a classic, rather horny book. There is a lot of sex, but it is of the behind the closed doors variety. Some of it not. I don't know. It was not very sexy. It was not very interesting, and the main character was not very likable. The love interest either, and the fact that the point of the book is that the main female character's unwillingly taken sex tape gets leaked, kind of not really vibed with me. Boring one. Another book that I did not finish was Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. I love that writer. He mainly writes gay romance, crossed with sometimes fantasy. His fantasy series, The Lightning Struck Heart, is great. I had this book pre-ordered since, I don't know, for 6 months at least. So I was really waiting it with bated breath. I started it and it sucked to me. It had one of my least favorite characters, which is an old person who gets away with anything because they're old. In this case, the guy specifically hit our main character because he felt like it, and it was okay because he was a sassy old guy. I do not vibe with sassy old guys or gals inflicting any sort of violence on people. It might be something that I'm very sensitive to because the entitlement and just general crankiness and also demand for respect from elderly people is something that is part of my culture. And while I in general love elderly people and considered working with them professionally as a career, still am, to be honest, as a psychologist in the future, that does not mean that I vibe with the entitlement and the bad attitudes some of them exhibit in real life, in my private life, in public spaces, and that's specifically the kind of guy that I hate. So him specifically was not great, and also the main character used to be a bad guy, and now he has to have this character growth, but seemingly, and I think it is a bit of a trope within American literature, specifically comedies and romances, where the not very great character is supposed to be good, and this journey leads through being bullied and mocked, but it is not considered mocking and bullying, it's kind of getting your just desserts. And I don't really vibe with that. I don't think abusing this character, and I perceive that as abuse, was necessary. So yeah, not great. The next book, I'll start with rating, I'll say 2 out of 5 stars, was Dear Ava by Ilsa Madden Mills. I read it based on the recommendation of Chandler Ainsley here on YouTube, channel linked here, because it's one of her favorites, because it's so steamy, but this is one of my least favorite tropes as well. I finished it because it was written way better and I was sort of invested in the main story, or the non-romantic second in importance storyline. So I finished it, but the trope that I disliked that was in this book is writing characters younger than the author actually wants them to be. And this applies to both male and female authors. When they write characters who are 16, 17, still underage or barely 18, but give them the physical traits of full physical maturity and very developed physiques, both masculine buff dudes at 18 or curvy girls with big badonkers. So making the characters young, and nothing in the story really justifies them being so young. The story takes place in high school, but it would not only have benefited from taking place in university, there's no reason for it to have taken place in high school. There was, if the characters, for example, some focus was put on them deciding what sort of career prospect and what sort of university they should go to, if any sort of transitional stage that people go through at that age was considered and talked about, I would not have had that problem, but it had not been. So there was no reason for the characters being 17, and they both were described as very physically mature. Just don't do that. Age up your characters, have them 18 at least. Being certain age has implications, and it's not even me being pearl clutching, it's just it's bad writing in my opinion. So yeah, did I say 3 stars? I hope I said 2. That's 2 out of 5 stars. I also reread or re-listened to the audiobook of Piekło jest we mnie by Joe Alex. It is called The Hell is Inside Me, and the guy is named Joe Alex because it was his artistic pseudonym. He was a Polish translator. I think his name was Maciej Słomczyński, name here. He wrote crime and police procedurals, and his books were sort of inspired by the books that he used to translate. I think they really sound like books that were translated, and they talk about foreigners, because the main character of The Hell Inside Me by Joe Alex is Joe Alex, a crime novelist. The book takes place, I think, in 30s or between 30s or 50s, I'm not really certain. It kind of is a mirror or an alternative, bit worse version of Murder in Orient Express by Agatha Christie, which I love, and that's a 5-star read. But Murder on Orient Express already expects you to suspend your disbelief quite a lot in order to get immersed in the story, and The Hell Inside Me expects that even more so of you. And upon rereading it, I thought it was a 5-star read, but I'll give it a 4, but it is a sentimental 4. The writing is solid, but it is not very believable. It is what it is highly stylized, so I can get behind that idea. The last 2 books that I read were Burn For Me and White Hot, so first and second installments of the Burn For Me trilogy by Ilona Andrews, one of my favorite fantasy romance writers. She is great, and it's a writing duo, a married couple. They are great. I really love their characterization, and they do this amazing thing, which I just figured out after having read those books, where they write a romance and you feel like a lot of the time is dedicated to establishing their relationship, but it is done because the characters are being built throughout their whole interactions. There is of course a mystery that needs to be solved. The main female characters typically are detectives, so there is a crime to solve, but the guy, the main male love interest, of course appears there, and they build their relationship with every interaction. They never just talk to further the plot. Every interaction we learn more, or at least it confirms what we know about the characters and the way that they interact. It just slaps, and honestly not many romance writers can do that type of characterization. I think they are one of the best at it, just at understanding that you can keep character building in mind at all times. They're very, very good at world building and characterization. I'm also, in the first book there is a character called Cornelius, who's an animal mage whose daughter is Matilda, and I was really intrigued by him. He becomes more and more important as the books go, and in the third book, which I already started, he is one of the secondary characters in the second book as well. So I'm not going to rate them yet, but I'm sure they all get at least 3. I will rate that trilogy when I end it. And that's it. No, hold on. Last book that I'm going to rate is going to be The Unwilling King by Avis. It is actually a Brienne of Tarth and Jaime Lannister fanfiction, which I wrote. I read over 500,000 words of Jaime Brienne fanfiction this month, but this is the one that I felt was the best one. It was most satisfying to me. Jaime and Brienne as a couple within Game of Thrones, the show, bring me a lot of joy, and their resolution was only semi-satisfying. So I love fanfiction about them, frankly, which allows them to be together. So this fanfiction, The Unwilling King, I will just super quickly summarize it and say one thing that really sold me on it. It is explicit, so there is sex in it, but it was not amazing and not really relevant. But the plot of it is that Jaime returns to King's Landing way earlier, when just after Cersei was crowned queen, and while he leaves for a little bit, like a side quest, Cersei blows up the septon, the church. So that's canon events, right? But considering that what we know about Jaime in the canon, so spoilers for Game of Thrones, what we know about Jaime in the canon, he killed the Mad King because the Mad King was mad and wanted to burn down the whole city. This fanfiction takes a little bit of liberties and makes Cersei a little bit more unhinged, or maybe just considers what she would appear like to Jaime if he encountered her earlier, because her storyline at this point really parallels the Mad King. So within the story, Jaime decides to kill Cersei, and because of the line of succession, he ascends to the throne, which he never ever wanted. He summons a Stark from the north as a representative force in order to conduct some business, and Brienne of Tarth. And in general, the fanfiction spans the months leading up to the battle with the undead. But the initiator of a grand scale collaboration between all the houses and potential monarchs is Jaime, who really tries to run away from the responsibility of being a monarch. And I'm not going to go into more details, but what I love is he is eaten at least a little bit by remorse of what has he done to Bran. And as a reader, I want to look smarter when I talk about it. As a watcher of the show, I did struggle with how to reconcile that his most heinous act, which was pushing a child potentially to his death, but effectively crippling a child, with his character development. Can he really be a reformed character after having done such a thing? And in this fic, he gets to talk with Bran after the war. I really love the way conflicts were handled in this fanfiction. But yeah, he gets to talk with Bran, and Bran at this point is the three-eyed raven, no longer a child anymore, effectively. And Bran says that you pushed Bran out with your hand, and karmically, kind of, you already lost that hand. So physically you already paid the penance, but because you still feel the guilt, and because you did some other bad stuff, your penance for me as this half godlike being is to serve the people as the king, which Jaime, as the only person in his family except for Tyrion, understands to be a service to the people. So that was the end of the fanfiction. Just him being sentenced to being the king, and I really found it interesting. I loved it. 5 stars for fanfiction level. As a meta commentary or head canonization, it really worked for me. And I'll end this video because I had a book haul. I bought some books. I don't do that anymore, but I was really tempted a lot this month, so I'll just mention what I bought. First of all, I bought Heartstopper. Oh, I read it, by the way. It's a comic about 2 boys in high school who fell in love. This was releasing online as a webcomic when I was in school, so it was emotionally significant to me at that time. It's going to be adapted by Netflix, as the cover says, and it was translated into Polish, so I have it more as a memento. It still holds up. I really like it. Speaking of boys in high school, Hurt Comfort by Weronika Łodyga, so Weronika Stem, is a Polish language and a Polish novel. Hurt Comfort is a trope within fanfiction, which means that one of the characters get hurt and then is being comforted, and then kind of going back to wellness is the theme of the fanfiction. It is not very angsty as a trope, but I love angst, so I hope that, because in Hurt Comfort it's like 50% angst, 50% recovery from said angst. So I'm really hoping that this book will be at least somewhat angsty. To deliver upon the trope. I read like this much so far, and it is fine. It is not angsty enough for my taste. It is also very juvenilely written. It reads like a fanfiction, so not as if it was written by a person who has a great understanding of prose and very great vocabulary. So we'll see about that. It is what it is. I bought Dog Treats. It's just a comic with different witty, in Polish, jokes about dogs. I love this person, this artist, and follow them on Instagram. It's called #psiesucharki, so #dogtreat. It's a comic. This book I bought because Man Handsome. It's a fantasy book, a wizard saving crimes, so crimes and stuff. It's good. And this I got as a gift. This is Testaments by Margaret Atwood. So The Handmaid's Tale 2. I intend to read it as well. I have not read the first installment, but we'll see. I think I'll just read it first because I have it on hand. I don't know when. And the last thing I have is the promised last installment in the Bow Street series, which is called Priceless Love in Polish and Worth Any Price in English. That's also on my TBR. This is... I don't know, I can't stop drinking it. I don't know what to rate it. I don't think I'm going to repeat it, but I'm going to have a nice time drinking it. It is nasty. And with that, I'll wrap things up. I hope you enjoyed your time here. This video is once again super long. I tried to make it quick, but I did not succeed. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I hope to see you next week. Bye bye. Oh, by the way, a little side note, we did compete with Kira in the dog tracking competition, so here are some pictures that we took there. But if you would feel so inclined, we are at all times gathering funds for our further dog tracking and dog training endeavors, so you can click the link and maybe consider supporting us if you feel so inclined. If not, enjoy the free videos. Bye bye.